Hi guys, welcome back to another podcast. It's Dan here from SportsCardsuk, and I'm very, very lucky to be joined with Harry. Harry is on Instagram. I'll get him to shout out all of his socials in a second. But on today's podcast, we're going to be specifically talking, and he's actually wearing the hoodie as well, about the London Card Show. So I did say I was going to do a podcast about my thoughts about the London Card Show, so I thought I'd kind of combine that with almost like an interview or with Harry about doing the card show. That was the second one, I believe. Was that right? The second one? Yeah. So I didn't make it to the first one. I think I was away on holiday, but the second one I did attend, and it was brilliant. So I'll introduce you straight to Harry. Harry, if you want to kind of shout out your socials.
Yeah, sweet. So, well, firstly, thanks for having me, Dan. Really, really excited to be on Instagram, UK Sports Card Collector, or the London Card Show page. Excited to hear what people think, more importantly, about the show, but to let you know what's happening in the next one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a quick chat before the podcast started. You said you got a couple of exclusives, which is
big news.
Brilliant. I'm excited to hear it.
Big news.
So yeah, I suppose the question I kind of tend to start with, and is easy to go to, is kind of what got you into sports cards initially, or where did you start? What's your kind of background or history?
It's going to be very vanilla, but it was I started young with like match stacks and I think it was shootout, and stickers, Panini stickers, all the years of like Premier League, and then when the World Cups were on. So I went through that, and then I kind of grew out of it. And then, like a lot of people, during lockdown, I was quite bored. I just graduated uni. I found some of my old sports cards, and I slowly got back into it. I actually started back with baseball because I lived in New York for a couple of years. So I'm a big Yankees fan, believe it or not. Baseball grew into watching a lot of the soccer breaks. I hate calling it soccer, but football or soccer breaks. And then F1 is what I'm big into now. The cards, I think there's massive growth in that, but just slowly grew the following, and it's built from there.
And when would you say you started the Instagram page and everything like that?
When?
Yeah.
I think it was January 2019, January 2020. Maybe a little bit before. Let me. I can quickly get up if you see my first post.
I think I started of March last year. So it's always interesting to hear people's stories and when they got into the hobby.
So my first upload was, if my Wi-Fi will let me go back that far, was back in September 2020. So that was my first post. But I probably had it a little bit before that, and if anyone sees it, my first 10 posts were just purely baseball. So
interesting. Yeah, I think funnily for me, actually, baseball was one of the things that I started off with, but I've really tailed off baseball because I think just I haven't found enough time to kind of watch it, and I haven't really found it to be easily televised over here. So I think it's just I think it's things like
sets
F1
are massive as well. Sets are massive, mate. Like 350 card sets, and it's my worry with where F1's going. With where F1 is going, from what I've heard about future sets. But that was my issue because I always like to complete sets. So
I did a podcast the other day, and someone said, "What was your?" It was like a Q&A, and they said, "What was your?" Not biggest regret, but what was your worst investment? And I said baseball probably as a whole, but purely because I collected the wrong things. I didn't realize the print runs of the base Topps cards, like series 1 and 2, were so as high as they were.
Bonkers.
And I was collecting PSA 9s of things. So there is a right way of doing baseball, but I started badly, and then I just kind of didn't really turn it around.
I'm the exact same as you are. I've got PSA 9s of just all these players, which if they have a good couple of weeks, they might go up, but in all honesty, they're nothing more than £20 cards now. I have tapped into the bigger rookies and future cards, and focused more on them. But yeah, it's a tough one just with, like you say, I was in a big negotiation with people, with one person at the show after one of my Hamilton cards, and here you put a load of NBA cards on the table, and it's just when I invest in something big, and this was like a Hamilton 10 refractor, so it was going to be a big trade. I like to watch it. Like, I like to be able to like watch that player or that team or whatever quite regularly. And if it's basketball or baseball, unfortunately, unless you want to stay up till 1 a.m. Watching it most days, it's just not feasible.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I completely, I do get where you're coming from with that. So I think for me, I've followed basketball longer, so I do understand basketball a little bit better. The highlights are actually really good as well. You can watch like 9-minute games on YouTube where they just break down the highlights, and you can kind of work out on your lunch break or wherever who's going to be good and keep your ear to the ground. But yeah, baseball, I think I actually I took a Wander Franco card to the two. I had the Bowman's first and then a Bowman's first Chrome, and I took it to one of the guys at the show, and I said, "Are you buying?" And he said, "Oh yeah, baseball, but probably graded stuff." And I said, "I've got Wander PSA 10s." And he was like, "Oh, I sold Wander before he joined the majors, mate." And I was thinking, I just had no idea, and I was like, why didn't I do that? And then I was like, it's because I don't know anything about baseball.
No, he's of the prospects. He was number one this year, so
and he's actually started pretty well. So
his postseason record was really good as well. In the postseason for a rookie, he was really good. So no, you've done well with that one, mate. You've done well.
It's just selling it, but I think it's on eBay at like I've listed it far too high and it just hasn't sold, so I need to bring that down at some point. I've got a couple of Luis Robert cards out, like
he's
first as well.
He was injured for a lot of the season, but it's a tough market to tap into.
Yeah. So actually, just speaking on baseball, before we just move into general stuff around the show, I had a very quick chat with a guy that I know on Instagram called Intercontinental Cards. He's from Wales. He's huge into baseball, and he's like my go-to guy for baseball stuff. Just while we're on the subject of baseball, and he said he asked me how the card show was, and he said, I wasn't too sure whether to go because it's a kind of a long trip from Wales to London. He said, was there any baseball there? And I said, actually, yeah, there was. And it was one of my first things that I was quite surprised at, that there was quite a lot of baseball at the show. There was specifically one vendor that was quite baseball heavy.
Yeah, Gowan. I know Gowan very well. He's it's the kind of thing where it takes one person to like the match, and then from there more will come, because a lot of the Facebook groups which I advertised the show in were very I'd go, but I don't know if there's vendors going, because if you only collect baseball, you're not going to want to go, and there'd be no baseball vendors there. So once Gowan said in that group, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be going with the triple table," a lot of people said, "Oh, I'll go just for that." And then because 4 of them said, "Oh yeah," commented, said, "I'm going to go," all of a sudden it's the beauty of, and it's why our show I think is fantastic, because we've got trade corner. So even if there isn't much at the stalls you can go over and say, "Let's have a look at your collection," stuff you can't do from home.
Yeah, that did work really well. How kind of how the show was set up is that you had the majority of the vendors in the middle of the hall, and then you kind of had the outside areas. There was a nice coffee bit out the side, which was nice. You had the trade corner. You had a box break section as well, which was really cool.
It didn't go smoothly, the break studio, and again, it was a good idea, and we're definitely going to bring it back for future shows. The team is talking for the next show, just because for this next one we're not too sure, just because those who came and were going to do breaks were so busy with their tables that they couldn't actually get to go and break their boxes, which again was good to hear that they were busy, but at the same time it was a little bit frustrating that they couldn't get there. And then Card King just did it at his stall, which again works perfectly. People got to see it live, so we're in talks about that. But yeah, the trade corner, the food vendor, the layout, there's not much we're going to change for the coming up show.
Yeah, okay. So I realised we have jumped straight into it, and we are obviously talking about the show, which is what we're kind of what we're here to do. But I suppose I've got a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you that I hope will give people a kind of a feel for how card shows work, and how you got into creating one, really. So I suppose, an initial starting question is how did you find running the first card show that you did, so the one that I didn't attend?
Yeah.
And what were the things that you learnt from doing that first card show?
It was tougher to do the first one, because I planned it, I booked it for actually a different venue. It was planned for the weekend after COVID restrictions were supposed to stop. But as we all know, old Boris had other ideas. He decided to push it back, I think, for a month. So I had to change that. I had to cancel that one, and then I had to rebook it. And I think we rushed the first one. We said after we were given the date, we went and said to this venue, which I love our venue, by the way. And I think I gave people 3 weeks to book, which frankly it was stupid. We got decent numbers for that amount of time. I think we got 75 people coming along, which isn't too bad, but with 3 weeks notice, you can't expect much more. And ironically, the thing we were short of were vendors. And considering for this show that we just announced, we sold out 65 tables in 48 hours. It's ironic, but in a good way for us. Let's just say that. So, it was good. It was more of a meet and greet, I want to say. It was more people that I'm really close with in the hobby, just saying, "Oh yeah, do you want to come along? Do you want to come along? We're doing this." A few people set up tables. Trade Corner was there. But I've always said, and it's going to sound really cringy, but failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. And I'm not saying it was a failure, but it was a big learning curve. We realized a lot about layouts. We realized a lot about ticketing, how to do it, pricing wise, where to market, all kinds of stuff. And far from the finished product, but it was a good step up. The second one was a good step up.
Definitely. It's a perfect answer. So in terms of the planning that was involved, how long would you say it takes to plan, especially the second one?
The second one is going to take a hell of a lot longer than any other show, and that's because we wanted to make it look professional. We didn't want it to look like a jumble sale, which could easily happen. Like I said, I love our venue. It's so good. They're so helpful. They've got all the facilities. They've got the chairs. They've got the tables. They let us have a food vendor. They're flexible on timings. They'll help us put the tables up. They're perfect. But if you just put a 6x2 table up, it's gonna look very average. So we had to go out, find somewhere that will get tablecloths, black tablecloths, again, which costs money, which costs time, to arrange, to find out which would look better with what tables. We had to find a food vendor, which, believe it or not, is actually really tough because there's so many food vendors that we're booked all year on Saturdays for a specific football club, for a specific venue, whatever. So we found one of them. We had to find a security place that we trusted. Excuse me. And we had to get the ticketing on point, the marketing on point, the website looking better. So it took time, but for this next show, we don't really have to worry about the tables, like the setup. We don't have to worry about the tablecloths because we've got them now. The hoodies for the team, which were fantastic. The security, as I said. So a lot of the stuff was just getting a blueprint, which now we can just, move that across. What do we want to improve rather than starting fresh, if that makes sense.
And is there, I suppose you mentioned the box breaks already, but is there anything else that you would say noticeably that you wanted to improve on from the second show?
There's not a whole load which you can do it. It's a lot. It's small stuff like getting music out there, just getting music, because I won't say their name, but someone came, one of the vendors came up to me and said there wasn't much of an atmosphere. And I said, in all due respect, an atmosphere is what you make it.
Yeah.
He was sitting at his table when customers were coming up, so he wasn't like getting involved with them, talking to them. Like if anyone walked past and even had a glimmer at my desk, at my table, I was like, "Hello, mate, how you doing?
Yeah.
You enjoying the show? What are you looking for?" And then from there, you get in a conversation, you gain a rapport, and even if you don't sell anything, they're going to think highly of you. Whereas if you just sit there waiting for someone to ask for a price, it's just a bit naff. But yeah, it's maybe some music out there. Maybe, I don't really know. It's something which we do need to talk about as a team, but you don't want to overdo it. You want to let people enjoy walking around looking at cards rather than, oh my God, there's a circus act in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting comment. So I mean, I thought that was completely opposite, really. I thought the atmosphere was great. There was a definite buzz of that you could hear everyone talking, conversing with everyone. Obviously, if you do go with music, you don't want it to be too loud that people are shouting over the music and they can't.
And that's the problem. You'd have to put the speaker somewhere. And so with tables everywhere, someone is going to have a speaker behind them. So it would be great, but unless we could get it really high up, it's just the kind of thing that we might have to go and miss.
Yeah, no, I think you'd be all right without that, to be honest. But personally, from my opinion. So from the card show, I think a couple of things that I noticed was that, and I don't know if you have spoken to anyone that attended, but I guess one thing that I felt like I was quite overwhelmed when I went there of actually, I guess I didn't really prepare or didn't think how many vendors were going to be there or how many people were going to be there, that when I got there I was like, whoa, this is...
It takes you back. It was a few times when... because I'll be honest, I was very nervous going into it, because running it, you're always assuming something's going to go wrong. You're like, someone's not going to show up, it's why we had security. We were really worried because we think there's the amount of cards that are in there, it only takes one idiot to do something and all of a sudden it's ruined. So it's why we had great security. I can't applaud the security enough. They walked around, they were making sure everyone had their badges. But that first walk in, I agree with you. It was a few times I did it when I had to go out to the car to get something or was speaking to the front desk. That first, when you walk in and you see everyone there, it was really nice. It was like walking into a football stadium, like when you see that buzz.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the Americans do it, where they walk into like the XL Arena or something full of card shows.
That's the aim. So. That's the aim. That is the aim.
Yeah, well, I've got a question.
XL.
I've got a question for you later on that, actually, funny enough, because I do the XL Arena for a show thing I do at work, which is all boring software stuff. But yeah, it'd be interesting if cards were that. But yeah, I think so. One thing that I mentioned, and I kind of said I was going to do a podcast on my thoughts on the show, so I'm going to kind of, I guess, blend it into this and just get your thoughts on it, was that my game plan was to go in there and find Fulham Prism stuff, and I didn't actually think I'd find as much as I did, and I did find quite a lot, and I did spend probably about £100, which was I think was a good amount. I probably was looking to more just meet people and just kind of pick up stuff and maybe sell a few bits if I can. I did find selling at a card show, I feel like it's very difficult to do if you, especially, you could potentially do it in Trade Corner, but then in Trade Corner you're kind of in the wrong place because people are looking to trade. It's called Trade Corner, it's not Selling Corner.
It was a tough one, because as much as we didn't want people who weren't vendors selling, it was a tough one because it would kind of undermine those who had a table, but at the same time you're coming to an event with cards, and it's why we really wanted Trade Corner to be buzzed in. But at the same time, there were a couple people where I told security to look out, and there were people, unfortunately, that just sat up in Trade Corner and laid their collection out.
Right.
And it's basically taking up one of the tables, and so I had to go over there once and say, look, man, I get you're looking he said he was just looking at his collection, but
Right.
we all knew what he was doing. He was fishing out there, and we didn't have a massive issue. We just didn't want cash going over the table in trade corner because we didn't have security there. And as soon as cash comes out, that's when we feel issues arise.
And I guess there's a kind of an etiquette there of, if you haven't got a table, is it right to really sell to sellers? And then I think especially with there not being that many card shows in the UK, the vendors are definitely looking to sell rather than looking to buy. So that was something that caught me, because I think from someone that had never been to a card show and have seen a lot of American vlogs, where they can go up to a table and they can say, "Oh, you looking to sell?" And they can literally sell to a vendor, and a vendor's open to sell. I think that's something that I definitely learned. As soon as I think I said, I was like, I'll just ask someone if they're looking to sell, and it's a fairly, I'd seen someone else open their case at their table, so I thought maybe it might be okay, and I went and tested the waters, and immediately as I said it, I felt this doesn't feel quite right. It feels like there's something rude or wrong about this. And then I sort of just left it at that point. I thought I'll get a table next year and then I'll do my selling then, and then it'll be a buying show.
It's one of those where I got asked a few times would I buy, and I said I'd trade. I wasn't really looking to buy, but I know some vendors would happily buy it, and it's the idea of you're a vendor. And I think it's one thing we need to communicate better. So as a vendor, you're more than welcome to buy or sell. You've got that luxury, you're a vendor. We just don't want people just going round and some people, again, I'm not going to say any names, but got grumpy saying, "Look, I've got a general admin ticket. Can I sell?" I said no. I was like, "Well, we're just going to do it outside then." I was like, I can't stop you, can I? I'm not going to get a security guard following you outside. And if you want to do a sale, you can. We just, very few sales. Quite a few sales, but there'll be a certain amount that are of a lot of money. And if you're at a vendor, then all of a sudden it becomes a little more, I don't want to say official, but a little bit more like over the table rather than just standing next to you, let's do this. So it's such a touchy one because it's a show. I want people to enjoy it. I want people to do what they want, buy, sell, trade. But as a vendor, I didn't buy a whole load. I was more looking to sell and trade mainly. And a lot of people, I was glad that they wanted to trade as well. They didn't just want to sell their cards. So it was a great mixture, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I don't know if I've mentioned, because I did the video on it, and then I thought, there's so many things that I want to talk about that I just need to kind of let it out in a podcast and have it kind of unscripted and just throw out thoughts. And I thought it'd be better to kind of discuss it with you because we were both there and we can kind of riff off ideas and thoughts and feelings about the show. But one thing that I will say that I was actually surprised about is that prices I thought were actually really fair, and I thought were really good. I didn't expect people to be. I didn't expect vendors, and by saying that, I'm not saying I expected vendors to be ripping people off. I expected things to be maybe slightly below comps, but I think one thing that we slightly struggle with in the UK is that
there's not many comps.
There's not many comps, and I found this recently. Like I'll buy a Saka SGC 9, and I bought it cheap on eBay, and it went on bids. And someone was like, "I'm interested in your Saka on Instagram," and I said, "Oh, okay." And they were like, "Last comp was this," and I was like, "Yeah, that was what I bought it at." So I'm like obviously trying, and there's no other comps for like UK sales. So they're like, "Yeah, but I want to get it below comps." I was like, "Yeah, but I don't want to make a loss." So like, where do we go from here? Like,
it's vendor pending. Like for me, I'd much rather sell something to someone in person. Like I think I had too much F1. I was trying to get rid of it, and stuff which was going even on UK comps, I was letting it go for 20% under, just because I'd rather give it to someone who's, and again, this is going to sound a bit weird, but I'd rather give it to someone who was being nice, but easy to talk to, not being stubborn, just like, I know what I want to pay for this, but having a conversation, like I say, a relationship, a rapport with someone. 100%. And if because all of a sudden they'll know who I am now, they'll know my Instagram. If they've got something which I like the look of in future, then it could balance out. So Yeah, I think the pricing was very good from what I saw. I didn't have a massive chance to look round. I heard there were a couple very, very good buys, a couple good stalls to go to, which I know I'll be heading to first thing next show. But yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I suppose so. One tip for vendors, just off that point, if you're looking to be a vendor, would you say it's important to have maybe someone with you so that you get a chance to walk around and have a look, so that someone can cover the table? Did you get a chance to do that much? Obviously, you were running the show as well, so
it was tough because I had an earpiece in with, so I felt like just a robot. I had earpiece in for security. I had a mic on for my camera crew who were following me around. I had my phone, which I was always getting out to check comps. And I think the thing is, when you've got a personal collection, it's so hard to have someone else there, because yes, you can price it and all that, but at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, people are going to negotiate with you. And if they're not, and if it's not your thing, you're not going to want to negotiate someone else's items. Like, I had a couple mates there who I know really well. And every time I said, mate, just back yourself. And every time he was like, mate, this guy's negotiating. I don't know what to do. So I'd have to run back over, which again, I'd be the same with him, because I don't know what certain cards I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm going, I'm flexible on that. I'm set on this.
Yeah.
And if you do a bundle of cards, I'll always, if I'm buying, I'd like to get that lower. And if I'm selling, I expect to give it lower, because you get a bundle. That's in my head how it works. So I'd certainly, if you're a vendor, you get 2 tickets, you get 2 general admin tickets, so you might as well bring someone along. Whether they know your cards or not, it certainly be helpful. But yeah, it's certainly, it's half the show, isn't it? Half the show is walking around seeing what everyone else has got. If you're a vendor, half of it is selling.
And is there a chance for vendors to, before general admission tickets, to kind of walk around and look at other vendors' stuff if other people are buying? Or
so we did it really well, and it's one of the things that went very smoothly. We said, right, vendors can get in there at 9 o'clock. VIP will be there at 10. So if you get there at 9, and some people get there like before 9, which we're like, we hadn't even finished setting up yet, so we were like, guys, can you just wait outside? But yeah, if you start at 9, vendors can get in there at 9 o'clock, and then VIP is in there at 10. So if you're set up before 10 o'clock, do what you want, man. As long as you've got your pass around your neck and cash in your pocket, you're good to go. So yeah.
And were most people, would you say, paying by cash? Was there any kind of PayPal transactions?
I'd say 50-50 between PayPal and cash. For me, I know a lot of people are card readers.
Okay. That's interesting.
So yeah. So that was used as well. I think Cash App. I think I even saw someone taking crypto, which did make me giggle. But
wow,
yeah,
that's the age we're in, though, isn't it? It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So
yeah, I actually saw at someone's stand. Someone said, "Do you trade?" And he said, he was like, "I'll trade cards." He was like, "I'll trade." I think he said, "I'll take cash. I'll trade." He's like, I'll take anything, whatever you got, cards, and things like NFTs. Like, he's like, I'll literally trade anything that you want. Crypto.
It's ridiculous.
I was like, that's mental.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers. There's everything. And I know some people who came to the first show said, I messaged them because before tickets went on sale for the second show, we messaged all the people who came to the first show to say, look, give them a heads up, like loyalty. They came to the first one, say, look, we're doing this. Tickets will go on sale. Actually, they went on sale at the same time, but they got like a 20% discount on tickets. But they knew when they were going to go on sale. And one of the guys said, "Mate, I've cashed out of cards. I'm all into NFTs now." And he's doing really well. He's got like an NFT podcast going.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty cool. So but yeah, it's just the progression of collectibles. It's crazy. So
and just on that, I suppose, so the majority of what I do is sports cards, but I do cover a little bit of Pokemon on the channel as well. But there was quite a lot of Pokemon as well, which was really good to see.
It's a kind of market where if you can crack it, you're laughing, because you go into the Facebook pages where there's 2,000, 5,000 for these football, baseball, whatever, and then you go in the Pokemon, there's 30,000, 35,000, and it's one thing that we noticed from the first show, and again it was such a small sample size, but there really wasn't much Pokemon, and it's a card show. And the biggest issue was, and it's why I made the London Card Show Instagram page, because I wanted people to realise that it's a card show, and with my Instagram handle of UK Sports Card Collector, whenever I was advertising it, everyone would be like, oh, okay, it's not for this. So as soon as I made the London Card Show and started doing it through that, people are like, oh, it is just a card show. So yeah, a lot of Pokemon there. It was awesome seeing some of the cards there. I know a lot of people were picking up just packs, because it was quite in line with the celebration.
Yeah, I picked up a couple packs of celebrations there.
Yeah,
I didn't plan on picking up any Pokemon. I knew there was a couple of Pokemon people there because I'd looked at the vendor list, but I didn't plan on picking up any Pokemon. And then I bought a couple packs for £10, which I thought was more than fair.
You never intend to. It's the kind of thing where it gets the better of you. You see packs and you just end up ripping. It's
it was good. And I thought actually one thing as well that I really liked was the collaboration that you did with MGC.
Yes, that's that. So for this coming show, we're gonna have at least 4 sponsors, which all have a different area of expertise. So I guess you could call this, it's not the big exclusive which I'm going to announce, but the 4 sponsors are going to be Atlantic Pro Shipping, which we really have to have on board. Is basically getting, because as you've said perfectly, and it's a little bit later, but there's no comps over here. I'd say 90% of cards are sold in the US. It's where cards may be a little bit cheaper, and even if they're not cheaper, there's just a more higher volume of them. So what Atlantic Pro Shipping do is they'll give you a locker, they'll give you an address. If you buy your cards over there, you can send them to them, and then you can request everything be sent in one shipment. So we're really happy to have them on board. We've got MGC again, which they were fantastic. I think the slabs which they did were perfect. They're really cool. I've got one which I'll keep for life. It's got the London Card Show on it. It's got everything, the date, and it's a 10 as well. It's 11 10, which is my PC actually. I've got a nice 11
Yeah,
so,
I ended up with an Ansu Fati 10.
I saw that. That's really cool. It's really cool. We've got Sports Cards Direct on board again, which again, so happy about. They were awesome with the goodie bags, and they had a fantastic stall. I was next to them. They had a great selection of F1 cards, and I'd say, nice. A really, although they're quite big, they're really family based, which I absolutely love. Like Sam brought his eldest along and his social media guy along, and it was so nice just seeing like it really gave a good sense of it's why we do this. It's for like enjoyment. He brought his business and his family along, two birds, one stone. So and they really enjoyed it. And we've got Dallas Insurance on board. Okay. And it sounds weird, but they approached us recently and said, do you want to have insurance for the show and for your collection? And I kind of did a Uno reverse card and said, I am, but would you be interested in sponsoring the show? So I called them up. We went out for lunch and spoke about it. And I think with the value that cards are going at, some of them that they need insuring. And I'm not saying this just because they're a sponsor, but I've got a load of my cards insured now, just because, God forbid, they get lost, they get damaged, they get a fire. They're insured, and some of these collections are really like, you'd insure a car for worth a lot less than that. So it's worth
I've got to get a card in a safety deposit box, but I reckon it'll be a lot cheaper to insure it directly than do that.
Exactly, and people don't think about
imagine.
that. People don't think it's possible, and their big thing was they insure old books, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
quite a traditional thing. So for them, they were like, he was a new lad, really nice guy, and he was a new lad to the company, and he said, "I wanna. This is my mark to make my name." And I said, "Mate,
Yeah.
you're gonna get some good business at the show,
Yeah,
because even if
100%.
it's a couple things." So yeah, there are 4 sponsors, and I'll give the big announcement now. We're gonna have Golden Auctions on board. Not as a sponsor, but they're going to be there. They're going to be walking around. They're going to be looking for submissions and stuff for their late January to be putting on. Where I didn't even know they had representatives over here, but apparently they're all over the shop. So for anyone who's got a really high end card, they said anything worth over $2,000, they'd be seriously interested in taking it. They're really looking to expand, and they said they just want to look around. It's not going to be like a hidden shopper, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. They'll let themselves be known. But yeah, really excited to have them on board. It's just one of those massive names that everyone knows in cards, really. Whether it's like, so I think some of the biggest cards that have ever sold have gone through Golden. So they're seeing it as an opportunity to get some submissions, which I was more than happy to oblige with.
Definitely. So, have Golden got an office in the UK, or are they coming over from the US?
So it was a bit of a brief call. I got a message from them saying, "Are you around for a call?" I said, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah.
And it was an English lad. He said he was just going to come along. He was representing Golden Auctions, so I assume they've got a UK office base.
Yeah.
And I suspect they might just do one big send over to the US with, but God knows the insurance on that if they send in a lot of cards over. But I assume so. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, just security guards just surrounding the box all the time. But no, yeah, it's going to be fantastic. It's the show is. I can't wait for it. I'm annoyed that it's not till January. But I feel, again, this is one thing which I'm going to turn the table and ask you and a lot of people. How often do you think card shows should be, like, in terms of like this?
That's a good question. You did. When was the first one that you did?
So it was late July, and I gave people 2 months notice for the next one, a month of nothing, and then gave them 2 months notice for the one just gone.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So when you do like, I work for a software company, and we do kind of one big show a year, and we do it in the Excel Arena, and there's hundreds of vendors and all sorts. But that's more of a, because it's software sales, we don't actually, although I'm in sales, I don't actually tend to sell any software really on the stand. I think the card show's totally different, because you've got vendors that are wanting to get rid of cards, and they're picking up cards at such a high rate that I think you could probably do it. I think quarterly would be, I would say quarterly might be the sweet spot, because it would just give people enough time to prepare for the next one, build up an inventory for the next one. But I think if you did it monthly, I think it might be too often, and then what you might end up doing is you might have sponsors and attendees go, "I'll miss this one, but then I'll go to the next one." Whereas if you had it quarterly, they would try to attend every year. But I guess that would be my opinion as an attendee and as a one table vendor. As of January, I'm going to have we'll have a table, which I'm very excited about. I'll be the small time seller on some tiny table with like a small amount of slabs and some raw cards and stuff. But I've got a bit of like F1 stuff that I want to get rid of.
Bit of everything.
Bit of everything, yeah. Pokemon. So I'm just going to see how much I can get rid of, just out of interest, and then maybe see what I can do. Maybe sign up with the Atlantic company, and then buy a load of slabs in the US to see if that works out. But Yeah, I think for me quarterly would be good, but I guess the opinions of the people that sponsor the show, like NGC and Sports Cards Direct, would be the ones to ask.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. For at least at the minute, for the London Card Show, we're going to do it quarterly. Again, it's just echoing what you said. We feel it gives people enough time to almost have enjoyed it and get looking forward to it again. It gives vendors, as you say, more time to get different stock in. If you did it monthly, it could end up, if you had the same vendors in, it was just the same stuff being looked at. And it gives a chance for new products to come out. We are looking at bigger venues just because we don't want to let people down in terms of, we want as many people to come. In terms, especially vendors, because as I said, selling 65 tables in 48 hours, you should have seen my face. For that 48 hours, I was just in shock. Like my phone was just dying like that, just because orders were coming through so good. Which again, it just shows the power of and the unexpected power of sports cards in the UK and Pokemon cards, of course, and other collectibles. So we're looking at bigger venues for maybe like a UK national. And you did briefly mention it, but having it at the XL is the dream. But we're looking at places with a little bit of bigger venues, so where parking is more. There's just no worries about parking. Where there's no, not no worries, but more people have a chance to get tables. I think the good thing that's going to be with this coming show is that we do actually have a lot of different vendors, which, as good as I feel about it, that is someone fresh. I had a lot of people say, oh, could I have a table for the next one? And unfortunately, I had to give the bad news, say, look, we've sold out. I'm really sorry. And I gave people notice. I said, look, I announced it, gave 4 days notice, 6 o'clock. And yeah, they sold out. So we're going to try and get a few more tables in it for the next show, just because we feel like, especially on the outside, there's a bit of space, and on the middle islands, we can fit one more table in. And as I said, we break corners break studio, is under discussion. But yeah, that's another 3-4 tables there. But you don't want to overdo something, you don't want to overkill it, but at the same time, I think at the moment, quarterly is the way forward. And I was really upset, and it annoyed me when people came to me and said, oh, great news to hear that the Wolves show isn't happening. I was like, why the hell is that great news? Like, I'm putting these shows on because I want to be at sports shows, sports card shows. I was really looking forward to the Wolves show. Yeah, they're a competitor, but at the end of the day, I want to go to shows, and it's the reason I did the card show and I made the card show.
So that's actually something I was going to ask you about. So just before I do, would you say you're looking at a venue that's kind of in between the current one that you've got in Tolworth and the XL? You're kind of looking at a medium?
Yeah, okay. It's a step up. It's a baby step, not a baby. It's quite a big step forward, but we feel like we could have done it for this coming show. But we didn't want to run before we could walk. We feel like we're so comfortable at Tolworth. As I've said, the venue is fantastic. The people, the staff are so helpful. Equipment is provided. It's got perfect space for a food vendor. It's local to me, and it's like 25 minutes from the M25, which connects the country together.
Yeah, so, the location is really good. So I'm in Surrey, so I'm round the corner basically.
Just up the A3 then.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I never realised that I actually sometimes go that way to just go into Kingston Town Centre.
Yeah.
And then I drove past it and I was like, oh my God, it's here. I've driven past this like 50 times and just never. So yeah, it was nice being local for sure. So going on to Wolves, because I was planning to attend that particular show as well. And yeah, I'm of the similar mindset to you that there doesn't need to be for I guess for vendors and for attendees, there doesn't need to necessarily be like a loyalty to one show. If you look at people in America, there's the Vegas show, there's a LA show, there's so many shows
everywhere that you'd be here all day listing them, and like I said, it's why I created the show, and I'll go into that more, like my entrepreneurial sides, on why I did it. But at the end of the day, it's a card show, and I want there to be card shows regularly. Like if on a Saturday I wake up after I've done my sport and I can say there's one an hour away, I can get the last 2 hours of it, I'd happily get in the car. Whereas now I've got to wait till my one. And I'll say I loved my one. I loved the London Card Show because it was almost like everything came together fantastically. But at the same time, I didn't enjoy it at the time. Like looking back, I was like, fantastic, it went really well. Where at the time, I was very much like security, camera. I was doing stuff on my table. I didn't enjoy it. It's like the saying, you never enjoy your own cooking. Like it's like that.
Yeah, you are organising it, aren't you? You're the head chef in that sense. You're not sat down at the table eating the.
I was looking forward to just rocking up, getting my vendor pass, set my table up, and that being my responsibility for the day.
Are you in talks with the guys that do the other show then?
No, not really. I spoke to them very briefly, just saying, look, guys, I'm sorry to hear about your show. Hope the member of their team who had COVID recovers and it's okay. But there's not a whole load of communication with them. I'm in talks with a few people further up north from Newcastle and Manchester about doing a show up there. Obviously, wouldn't be a London card show if it's there, so we'd have to do a bit of rebranding and some kind of work for that. But it's in the works because I lost count of the amount of people that said, do one up north, it's just too far to come, which I completely understand. Although we had people from all over Europe, we had people from Hungary, Germany, France, Italy all come over, which we were gobsmacked by. It's arguably easier for them to get here because you can fly over and get a taxi, whereas driving for 8 hours exactly is an absolute pain in the ass. But we're in talks. It's in the works, but like I say, a lot of people think this is my full-time job. It's not. I work as an investment banker from 8 till 6 every day. So what started out as a hobby has drastically got out of control.
I know. It's the same for me. Cards is not my full-time job, and it's completely far from it. But it'll be a long time, I think, until cards is my full-time job. But that's interesting. I do it. So just to go back to because I've got kind of a bit of experience being a software vendor at shows for what I do for work. They have a big show in London, and then they have a slightly smaller show in Manchester, and they just call it North. So they'll just do they'll just do the London show, and it'll just be the London Card Show, and then they'll just do London Card Show North. But obviously, as you say, it won't be London Card Show.
It's in the works. So stay tuned.
That's cool. So how many vendors have you got for the next one? Do you know numbers roughly? Or
so we're looking to get 75 tables. Let me work this out.
That's a lot of tables.
It is. So we had 64 at the last one. So we've looked at the footage and we feel like we can comfortably fit in another 10 or so without making it cramped. And then so.
And what's your number of people that can attend?
So we weren't and this was the tough one. We weren't given a set number by the venue because they were like, we don't really have a set one, just because if it's going to be like open, if it's flowing all day, their biggest issue was, I think it was like 350. They said we don't want any more than that. So we sold 350 tickets. I must have had another 100 people say, can I buy a ticket after we'd sold out? And it was very much like, well, we could start selling afternoon tickets, but it was too late to almost advertise that because you have to commit to the people who have asked. Like I've got a reserve list of probably 20 people on tables and that order. So you've got to go down that. And I hadn't been keeping track of the people who had said, yeah, I'd like a ticket. So it's one of the things we're looking at for this coming show, because you're not going to be there all day, especially like the VIPs. You get there in the morning. No one, unless they just set up and trade corner, want to trade all day, it's up to them. But very few people are there the entire day. So we're thinking of selling a few on the door and doing a few afternoon tickets. But yeah, it's a lot of, you can only sell as many tickets as you got to assume they're going to be there all day, unfortunately. But we found out in the past show that a lot of people were leaving, because fair enough, they've had a good time, they've seen what they need to see, and they've run out of money maybe, and or they've spent too much and they want to get out before they spend any more.
Spend it all on packs and got nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky one, because we want as many people to attend as we can, and and it's not for monetary reasons. We want it to be a great vibe, but we don't want to overpack it and there be queues for people on stalls. So
brilliant.
Yeah,
perfect. All right, well, I actually don't know how long we've been chatting for, but it feels like, because we're doing a little bit for your channel. Is it going on your YouTube?
Yes, it's going to go up on the YouTube of UK Sports Card Collector.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll do a little bit at the end of that. So I don't want to keep you for too long, because otherwise we'll be. I mean, I could literally be up all night talking about cards.
I've got nothing better to do, mate. I've just looked and Man United are losing, which is always funny. Which is always funny. Poor old Ollie. As a United fan, it's sad. It's sad.
Are you a United fan or?
Yeah. Right. I grew up being a United fan. I grew out of love with them at uni, but it was my dad. So after uni, moving back in, he's made me fall back in love with them. Bad time to fall back in love with Man United, but
Cool. All right. So yeah, just before we end the podcast, I guess this is just like a kind of an opportunity for you to shout out all your socials, tell us when the next London card show is, where it is, what the date is, and any plans that you've got, anything that you've got coming up. Floor is yours.
Nice one. So be sure to go check out the London Card Show Instagram page. We're trying to get 1,000 followers before the next show, which is going to be January 29th. It's going to be in the same location, so Tolworth Recreational Centre, which isn't far off the A3. It's on the A3, which isn't far from the M25, so it's accessible for a lot of people. Go follow that. Instagram, my personal one is UK Sports Card Collector. I've been a bit quiet on it recently, if I'm being honest, but yeah, I do a lot of F1 on there, F1 cards, F1 breaks here and there. Started TikTok recently, actually. Go check out UK Sports Card Collector on TikTok as well. But yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Harry, for joining me on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. I did say before I started the podcast that I wanted to bring you on again so that we could talk about being a box breaker, because I feel like that's such a big part of the hobby, and that's something that I've never actually discussed. I've opened up some stuff on Mail Mondays before where I've said, I've entered in a few breaks here and there, but yeah, to get the opinion of a breaker, I think it'd be quite cool, what it's like. And then obviously Harry's huge into F1, as you mentioned, so yeah, to talk all stuff about F1.
Oh wait, I'll go this way. That all of those are my biggest F1 cards, so check out Dan's next video. You'll be seeing them. You can see them.
Definitely, yeah. He had a I don't want to ruin it, but he did have a one of one super refractor of Lewis Hamilton, which was crazy, and was at the show as well. So that was really cool to see.
Indeed. Yeah, cool. Thank you for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribed on YouTube if you're not already. Make sure you drop a like on the video. And if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify, please do drop me a follow and a nice review as well. Thank you, Harry, again. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you on the next Sports Cards UK podcast. Thanks very much.